Well, I found out this summer that shooting sports, football specifically, can be hazardous for your camera equipment. In front of me is the cinema rig that I've been using for the second half of the year. Well, because my FX6 took a bit of damage. Let's roll the clip. Sick!
Did you ever just get hit?
Well, this is a quick lesson in why you always have a backup camera ready to go. The FX6 took a bit of a beating. Ball got tossed. It was a bad throw and absolutely wrecked the mic holder.
This is why I have backups.
All right, so now you know what happened to the FX6. It's still off for repair. It's been with Sony Canada for 2 months now. I miss her dearly, but I've been making it work with this setup right here, which I'm gonna build and take you through why I parted it together the way that I did and how it goes together and how I've been enjoying it. So the main reason for this build was to base everything off of V-mount batteries, same as with the FX6, because having to swap out one of these guys as well as a Sony NPF battery every 45 minutes just doesn't work for me. You're shooting sports, you have to be quick and on your feet, and having a battery die on you when there's a critical moment happening during gameplay or something else happening that's going to tell the story of that game, you just can't miss it. And having to deal with these battery swaps is just such a huge pain, plus the reboot time. So let's start building out my A7S III rig and talk a little more about that. So the whole rig is based off of the Smallrig components that I've had for some time, and then I've had to get a few extra pieces to make this work even better for myself. So I've had the Sony A7S III pretty well since it came out, and it still does the trick. The image really doesn't look that much different from the FX6, but obviously the FX6 is just much easier to use in that sports documentary kind of setup. So that's why I miss it. I miss it so much. Now I'm running CFast A cards inside the A7S III because I had a couple issues with SD cards in the past, and I just know the read-write speed is gonna be good in the CFast card. We've got the cage on with a Nato rail up top, just makes it easier to add the top handle later on, but we're actually gonna start next with the base plate, which is also, again, from Smallrig. Now this base plate, I believe it only came with the one 4mm quarter 20 mount or screw, which I am screwing in right now. So I had to kind of scrounge around the studio. You'll notice that I'm not down the studio right now, and that's because it has been pretty well booked out for film shoots for the last month, which is great. Base plate's on and secure there. And I'll put the part numbers down in the description below if you're looking at this. This was one step up from the other Smallrig baseplate. It just had a little more torque protection. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but basically the rods have more of a housing to sit in. So there's going to be less torque on the rods when you put them in. So I'm using 15 mil Smallrig aluminum rods, and we're running them about 3/4 to the back half there, maybe 2/3. Slide them both in, try and match them up as well as possible. We'll screw that down. And we've got the first couple of components in, and I got a sneeze. All right, and this was one of the pieces that I had to pick up in the last couple of months to make this rig work. This is the Tilta V-MOUNT backplate, and this is basically made to get your mirrorless setup to run a V-MOUNT power solution. So the reason why I went with the Tilta plate system, even though it's a little more expensive, is because this actually runs power via USB-C into the camera versus using a dummy battery. Dummy batteries work great, but it exposes the internal battery compartment to the elements if you're shooting outdoors, which 90% of the time I am. And it also allows you to hot swap batteries because you can actually keep a Sony battery inside the body of the camera. So if you have to flip out a V-mount battery, you can do that and keep shooting. So that was the main reason for me going with this guy here. It also gives you a D-tap on the side here, another USB-C input, and one more D-tap right here. And these USB-Cs actually have locking collars, which is really nice as well. Now, with these ones, you do need to run a skinnier USB-C, and Tilta does provide one. So it just needs to be thin enough to kind of fit into this housing back here. So we'll mount that up. There we go, got that, and then we'll run it to the camera. Plug that in there, and we'll get the battery on. So we'll slide the battery on the back. Now these Smallrig batteries are also great because they're like half the size of the traditional batteries. These are the V-mount bricks that I've been running so far, and this is like a 95 watt hour. This one's 99. More power, smaller housing. So very nice right there. So we got the battery on, we got the rails. Let's get the top handle on. Just slides on the NATO rail like that. We'll screw it down. So the monitor, I use just this Smallrig cold shoe adapter here, which slides into the top handle like that, into the cold shoe. And the nice thing with the Smallrig one and most top handles now is that they do have a security tab right there, so it's not going to slide off the front if it does unscrew a little bit. So that's just a nice little added bit of comfort. Also, it's nice that Smallrig and all of these other more affordable brands are adding RA locating pins, so the monitor stops swiveling around on you. So we're going to screw that down. It'll still swivel when you want it to, but it's not the monitor that's doing it. It's your Smallrig adapter. So that's nice right there. So let's get the dummy battery to D-tap. You know what? Let's go from this side here, right to the back, like that. Let's get the HDMI out. All right, so we're starting to look like a rig here. And now we'll just go to the right side, add the Smallrig wooden handle here. And this is where we're gonna attach our audio inputs here. Big reason for doing the audio inputs on the handle for myself is obviously there's not a whole lot of extra real estate on the camera body, but it also keeps the shotgun microphone a little further away from the Ninja V, which does tend to run a little bit louder. And once I get those thumb screws hand tightened, I just like to go with the 4mm Allen key that fits in these little holes and tighten it down just a little bit more. Sometimes I find hand tightening just doesn't go quite tight enough. Now the really cool thing about the XLR K3M module is that you can mount this directly to the top of your camera, but obviously I've got a top handle in the way. So it also comes with the relocator here. So it's just an extra cable that you can mount the pinned side. Let's run it this way. You can run the pin side directly to the camera body, and then make sure it's screwed down, and then have the cold shoe side on the handle. So now you can just go and screw this in here. And just, this is still not my favorite setup, but it's kind of working well enough for me while the FX6 is still out for repair. So we'll get the shotgun mounted up over here. We'll get this into the input. Now that's mounted up there. And so we're pretty well there. We're gonna get my new favorite lens, the Tamron 35 to 150. It is just such a great dock lens because it's an f2 to 2.8. And 35 to 150 is just such a great range. Gets you on the wide end and a bit on the tighter end. And then on the front of that, I've got the Peter McKinnon 2 to 5 stop ND filter. The only other thing that we'll probably need to add on here is a Manfrotto baseplate so that I can run this on a monopod or pop it on a tripod pretty quickly. Now, the reason why I go with the K3M unit instead of just something like a Rode shotgun like this guy right here is mainly because I'm also doing media scrums or interviews post-game, and I need that extra XLR input for a wireless handheld microphone or lav, depending on the stuff that I'm shooting that particular day. But super important for me to have that, and then have a microphone ready to go in case I'm also working with a sound person. All right, and so that is my current A7S III build that's getting me through until the FX6 comes back. It's a pretty low-key kit, and it's fairly easy to use. The great thing being, again, it's a hot swappable situation. I've got a battery in the camera, as well as the Smallrig 99 watt-hour battery off the back. I can swap this at halftime, and there's no real concern. It's just right there and ready to go. This whole rig fits in a 1535 Pelican Air carry-on case, so that you can take it right on the plane, build it up, tear it back down. And the only other recommendation that I have for you is that if you're traveling on an airline, make sure that you tape up all of your connectors right here with some electrical tape. Make the airline feel a lot better. You look more professional and you're good to go. But let me know what you think of the rig. Again, this is an older camera, but it's doing the trick right now for me. And the image isn't that far off of the FX6. The FX6 is just obviously so much easier to use in those sports and documentary situations. So glad to be back, and hopefully I'll be doing more in my home studio right now. But I'd also love to be back at Evil Empire. So we'll see you in the next one.
Sick. Did your camera just get hit? Camera just got. No way. There you go, the other camera. Incomplete.